Welcome to a brand new episode of the Fight Lounge. I'm your host, RJ Meads. On the previous episode, I broke down and gave my prediction for the MVP versus Paul Daly fight going down this Saturday, February 16th at Bellator 216. Also, at the end of the video, I said that later in the week, I was going to go over a few more fights from the Bellator 216 card. Well, I changed my mind. I'm not going to be doing that. And the reason being is because I legit forgot that the UFC had their own event go down this weekend. Like 90% or 99% of the UFC events are on Saturdays. And so, excuse me. So when I looked at my calendar, I saw there was a UFC event Saturday. I was assuming they didn't have one. But then I actually went on their official website, and they said they had one Sunday. And so instead of making an episode about the Czech Congo fight or the Roy Nelson fight, this is going to be strictly the UFC on ESPN main event fight. I'm not a professional journalist who's paid to cover each fight and each fighter. I'm just a fan who loves fighting and love doing this podcast. So I only cover fights in events that I'm interested in. And the Francis Ngannou versus Cain Velasquez, an event that I'm really interested in. And if I mispronounce Francis' last name, I apologize. But yeah, I definitely want to cover the Francis versus Cain match because not only is that a great fight, it's a historic event as well because it's the very first UFC on ESPN event. Meaning this fight will be on the ESPN channel, not ESPN Plus like the previous Henry Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw fight. This is going to be a hell of a fight because we are dealing with two elite fighters. Cain's record is 14-2, while Francis' record is 12-3. So both guys rarely lose. The knock on Cain Velasquez has always been that he wasn't an active champion due to injuries. Cain's last fight was in 2016 against Travis Brown, which is 2.5 years ago. Cain was an elite fighter because his only two losses came when he was champion. I don't know if you noticed, but I used the word "was" for a reason because, in my opinion, especially in MMA, you can't constantly take layoffs between fights. You just can't. You have to be active. You have to be consistent because the sport of MMA grows. Like, it changes every single year. And so I think because Cain has such a big, long period of fighting, I think the game has passed him by. Because since he was champion, Stipe wasn't even mentioned. Like, he was on nobody's radar. And after all these years, now Stipe is deemed the greatest heavyweight of all time, which is kind of ironic because I truly believe if Cain Velasquez wasn't injury prone, he would have been named unanimously the greatest heavyweight of all time. But as we are here in 2019, Cain's kind of forgotten. People forget how dominant he was. Like I said, he only lost 2 fights, and both was when he was champions. Excuse me. Francis Ngannou was not the next big thing. That was until his performances against Stipe and Derek Lewis. After those two awful performances, the Francis Ngannou high training derailed. Now, I'm not saying Francis isn't a dangerous fighter. Isn't a dangerous fighter because he is, but I do think that he got exposed, and now other fighters now know the blueprint of how to defeat him. Francis bounced back from those 2 back-to-back losses by knocking out Curtis Blaydes on November of 2018. I'm hoping that Francis got his mojo back and we see the old version, the old knockout, highlight real Francis instead of the constant hesitant Francis. That's what he was when he fought Stipe and Derek Lewis. He was just hesitant. Like, he was looking for that one punch. So each round he would only throw honestly like 10 punches in a 5-minute round. And in his performances, the crowd booed. The commentators, Joe Rogan, all of them, even Dan White was critical of his performance. So when he fought Curtis Blaydes, he went right to the on him, just constantly throwing, setting up the big punch. If this fight was in 2012, 2013, I will pick Cain. But unfortunately, it's 2019, and I think Cain Velasquez's body has failed him, and I truly believe the game has passed him by. So my prediction is Francis Ngannou will defeat Cain Velasquez via knockout. Now, Cain is a high-level wrestler, and if you watch Francis' last fight against Stipe, you see that his takedown defense and his ground game is terrible. But for some reason, I think Cain is going to stand up and trade with him, and that will be his demise, because I think that's when Francis will catch him, clip him, and be a knockout. And that would do it for tonight's episode. In conclusion, I have Francis Ngannou winning via knockout and possibly getting another crack at the UFC Heavyweight Championship. It'd be messed up if he gets one before Stipe, but that shows that the Dana White really didn't like Stipe. Honestly, I wouldn't mind another Stipe versus Francis rematch either. I don't know. But that would do it for tonight's episode. The next podcast will probably be for the John Jones versus Anthony Smith UFC 235 on March 5th. That'll probably be the next one I'll do. So yeah, if you haven't already, go ahead and like us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And this episode is available on Spotify and iTunes, as well as SoundCloud. But before I go, I just want to say this weekend is filled with fights. We have Bellator event Friday. Matt Mitrione is headlining. And then Saturday, the high anticipated MVP versus Paul Daly fight Saturday. And then Sunday, of course, we have Cain Velasquez versus Francis Ngannou on ESPN. So we have a weekend filled with fights. So this should be a great weekend. So yeah, I'm going to get off here. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.